Welcome back to Daytona. Of the first 10 driver starting spots, only one has won the Daytona 500, that being Dale Earnhardt Jr. To navigate us through these 500 miles of history, we bring in Mike Joy, working his 31st Daytona 500. Hey, Mike, looking forward to today.
So are we, Chris. It's a moment we've waited for all winter long, and it's finally here. In 3.5 hours, one racer's life will change forever. Only in NASCAR does the season start with the absolutely biggest event. Since 1959, the Great American Race has been marked by fantastic finishes, by calamity, and by controversy. Upstart winners like Pete Hamilton in 1970 in a backup Richard Petty car, like Derek Cope, who stole the win when Dale Earnhardt had a flat tire on the last lap in 1990. You never know what's going to happen in this 500-mile race. Controversy? From the very start, when the Speedway opened in 1959, it took 3 days of analyzing finish line photos to declare Lee Petty, number 42, the winner of the first Daytona 500. Can't forget 1976, that's David Pearson backwards, Richard Petty slamming into the wall, Pearson won it. And what about the duel of 79, Yarborough and Allison, and the resultant dust-up? Whether a first-time winner or a 7-time Daytona 500 champion, the whole team gets to celebrate. And for every single driver that visits this victory lane to win the Daytona 500 means you've had a great career. And for 43 racers, the journey begins now.
Now, to deliver the most famous words in motorsports, the star of the movie Ghost Rider, Nicolas Cage.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Everyone knows how important the Daytona 500 is to win. Darrell Waltrip's won it. Larry McReynolds is a crew chief twice. How hard is it, though, to win this race?
Well, you've been anticipating this race for 364 days. Not just this week, not just this off season, but that long. Your family, your friends, everybody you know, your team, they're all in it with you. I think about Dale Earnhardt when he won this race in '98, and he came down pit road, and every crew member was lined up and down pit road because they were in that race with Dale Earnhardt. They wanted him to win. This place, it's what dreams are made out of, but there's also a lot of nightmares in your way along the way.
And you had to anticipate it for 17 years before that dream
and
came
Dale had
through.
to wait 20, you know.
That's right. Larry, you were there.
And, of course, this is one of 36 races, but this is the first race. And these teams, they didn't start preparing for this race just a few weeks ago. They started preparing for it months ago. But I think what makes it so tough to win, even though the preparation is so good on the things you can control, it's all those things that you can't control. It's the flat tire on the last lap. It's mistakes made by other drivers and other teams out on the racetrack or on pit road. That's the reason you cannot leave your television till they cross the start-finish line, and then we don't know that all the action is over, even at that point.
It's when everybody's at their best. It's not at the end of the year. It's at the beginning year when everybody's at their best. You beat the best of the best.
Think of a season that starts with the World Series or the Super Bowl, and that's what we have here in NASCAR. Budweiser, the official beer of NASCAR, is proud sponsor of the Budweiser Pole Award, given to the fastest qualifier at each Nextel Cup race. Budweiser congratulates David Gilliland on his Daytona 500 Budweiser Pole Award. He'll be in the Bud Shootout at Daytona 2008. Let's have a look at the starting lineup for the 49th annual running of the Great American Race, with both Robert Yates Fords on the front row. David Gilliland and Ricky Rudd. Tony Stewart, who won his dual race Thursday, and Kurt Busch runner-up in the second one. Dale Jr. is a past winner. And on back through the starting lineup, 43 strong. This race was so tough to make that 3 past winners of the 500, Bill Elliott, Derek Cope, and Ward Burton, went home Thursday empty-handed.
Well, there's no question about it. Everybody prepares for this race harder than any other race. It pays the most money. It's got the most prestige.
61 teams showed up to qualify for this race. Only room for 43. 18 had to go home.
A lot of rookies in the field. There's row 18. David Reagan and Juan Montoya, both rookie drivers. Jeff Gordon way out back after his winning position in Thursday's duel was disallowed due to the car's height being too low in post-race inspection. He'll have to roll off 42nd, but thinks he can win it from out back. The pace laps and the journey are underway. 500 miles from now, we'll crown a Daytona 500 champion. You're watching NASCAR in high definition on Fox.
The Daytona 500 on Fox is sponsored by Goodyear, innovative technology to help you get there. And by Budweiser, the official beer of NASCAR. This is Budweiser. This is beer.
Aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, reminding you to get there on triple tread technology with 3 unique tread zones for unsurpassed traction in any weather. The infield is full of campers and campfires and race fans who've partied all night and they're ready to race today, and the grandstand is full as well. It is chilly, but that's not the big story. The big story, Larry, is the wind.
Well, when you've got that type of a wind, and we're probably going to see gusts over 25 miles per hour, it's like a headwind down the back straightaway and a crosswind over in turn 2. If you can imagine landing a private aircraft in a crosswind of that magnitude, just think about doing that at over 180 miles per hour, 3 wide over there in the middle of that corner.
Well, let's go down to pit road in our Fox Frozen foursome, beginning with Chris Devoda.
Well, Mike, history will be made today, but how will it be written? Carl Edwards still remembers his first Daytona 500 start. It was only 2 years ago, but he says the feeling of knowing he could win this race was almost bigger than the event itself. Ricky Rudd just told me that feeling never goes away. Steve?
Krista, David Gilliland is the Cinderella story. This is his first full-time season with Robert Yates Racing, and he's starting from the pole position. His crew chief, Todd Parrott, told me, I want him to stay on the bottom, and I want him to be patient. Matt.
Kevin Harvick starts all the way back in the 34th position. He had a mechanical failure in his dual qualifying race, but Harvick's car very stout. He has 2 concerns going into today's race. A, starting so far back in the field, hoping everyone is patient in the early going. Second, like the guys in the booth mentioned, they'll win. But RCR, they haven't won a plate race in 7 years now. Harvick's never won a plate race. His best finish is second. They think that can change today. To the editor of Speedway Illustrated, Dr. Dick Berggren.
Well, more than half of the driver crew chief combinations working today's Daytona 500 were not together at last year's Daytona 500. And when it comes to forming good strategy for this race, give the advantage to the teams that have been together the longest.
Good point, Dick. 500 miles around this 2.5-mile super speedway will encompass 200 racing laps, combination of green and yellow flag laps. 200 miles on this blustery day. Pace car runs 70 miles an hour. Pit road 55.
And those 2 things right there, they could definitely play how the outcome of this race comes out. These guys will be racing at over 180 miles per hour. You have to get down to 55 miles per hour under a green flag stop. And that pit window, 45 to 48 laps, especially as Dick Berggren was talking about strategy at the end of the race, that could play a huge role as well.
And you got to watch sliding that right front tire. We've seen that happen time and time again here. If you're going to do a gas and go, or even just getting on pit road, you blow that tire out, could cause you some extra trouble and extra time.
Right, don't lock the brake up. Pacing the 49th Daytona 500, this 2007 Chevy Corvette Z06. 505 horsepower, 198 miles an hour. Chevy, official pace car of NASCAR.
Looks like I ought to be in the movie Cars.
We have all talked about what it means to win the Great American Race. That is what's on the mind of 43 drivers, their car owners, their crew chiefs, their engine tuners, and everyone associated with those race cars. But what are the men inside them thinking about the importance of winning the Daytona 500?
I hear the fact that I've won the Daytona 500 and hear that used in a lot of places now, and it shocks me. I still don't think I've totally accepted that.
I think the first thing is realizing how big a race this is to all of us.
There's a lot of wins I would trade in for one win here at Daytona during the 500.
This is the race everybody points towards, and so you realize that at that moment you've beaten the best at their best.
There's nothing that beats the Daytona 500. I mean, it is our Super Bowl of stock car racing.
Tried to stay focused on the emotion of winning it, which I've never experienced, would be overwhelming.
This is the one jewel that's missing out of the crown right now.
Tony Stewart trying to do what no one has done. Win the Budweiser Shootout, the Gatorade 150, and the 500. All three events for Nextel Cup cars. Buddy Baker won 2 out of the 3, the first 2 of the 3, and so did Kenny Schrader. Nobody's won all 3.
Same car that he's won both 4th of July races in. This is a good race car. His confidence is high.
6 past winners in this field. Jeff Gordon 3 times, Dale Jarrett 3 times, Sterling Marlin and Michael Waltrip twice, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and last year Jimmy Johnson.
Mike, when you win most races in Nextel Cup, you're able to celebrate them and they stay with you for about a week before you go to the next race. When you win the Daytona 500, it doesn't stay with you for the rest of your career. It's with you for the rest of your life.
Happy to have you with us today, watching in high definition on Fox the cars in the east banking of this super speedway, which will turn 50 in another year. 31-degree banking, steeper than the roof on your house, and look at that crowd. They will rise as one as the pace car looks toward pit road.
DW, I've been waiting about 7 or 8 months to tell you this, buddy. It's going to be a wild ride. Next time by, over 180 miles per hour, 2 wide, 3 ride. Reach up there and pull those belts tight one more time.
Boogity, boogity, boogity. Oh, yeah, boys, let's go racing.
Sitter David Gilliland lead the first lap.
I think he can lead the first one, and I think he can probably lead the last one, the way that car has performed down here the last week and a half.
That's worth 5 bonus points. If you lead a lap in a Nextel Cup race, 5 bonus points put on your points total for the year.
And all those butterflies and all that anticipation, that's over with now. We got to put our work clothes on and get busy.
And there they are already. It didn't take them long. 3 wide. We'll talk about that a lot. These cars bouncing around at over 180 miles per hour.
And right now you can do that. The tires are good. They're fresh tires, good grip. You can get 3 wide and move around right now, but that'll change after a while.
Jeff Burton moving up 4th on the inside lane, now moving up into 7th spot as Gilliland's Ford brings them around for the 2nd time.
And Mike, don't forget, we had rain here last night. This is a green racetrack, so this is the first time these guys have run on this track with it in this condition.
And of course, what he means is, as far as a green racetrack, all the rubber was washed off, and that'll take it where it doesn't have near as much grip.
Yeah, God, Holmes adjusting his set. Hey, I need a track turn green while we was away.
Kyle Busch way up high, 3 wide, right behind Ricky Rudd, the car you're riding with. There's Tony the Tiger peeking out. That's Kyle Busch. He's had trouble finding drafting partners this week, but he's got a fast car.
I got David Gilliland. He's got to be sitting there thinking, wow, I'm leading the Daytona 500. And the guy that's won all the races is running behind me. This is cool.
That would be Tony Stewart. Big Orange riding in 2nd spot.
And Big Orange is a teammate, well, sort of. They are co-opetitions. Dale Jr. is right behind him.
On the outside lane, Kurt Busch in that blue deuce. He's been the best of the Dodges this week, as you watch from Dale Jr.
You know, a Dodge hadn't won this race since, I don't know, back in the 70s. Richard Petty was the last one to win here in a Dodge.
But for Ward Burton in 2002, you're right. Dodge had a big string of success here, but it was a long drought until Ward Burton went to victory lane.
Riding with Michael Waltrip right here in the 55 car right now. Michael in the 14th position. That's about where he started. This is a backup car after the infraction in qualifying, and he got very little practice. Had to race his way in the dual race, sitting up there holding his own right now with that Toyota.
I think you'll see Michael will race great. He's always driven well here. He's always run well here, no matter what car he was in. It's got to be a thrill for him, too. Mike driving his own race car for the first time.
We saw Kyle Busch in that 5 car go straight from the top, straight into the middle of the pack. He has had a fast race car. The car right there, the blue and yellow car right in the middle. Oh, Tony the Tiger on the hood.
Now, I think he's got to be patient and not make a lot of moves like that right there. He's been fast down here for the last 10 days, but he's got to be patient and have that thing around to finish. There's another guy I think we're going to hear a lot about today, too, in that 12 car going under Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman. I think he and his teammate, Kyle's brother, Kurt, I think they got some of these guys.
Second place, the battle. Kurt Busch on the outside of Tony Stewart. Chevy against Dodge behind Gilliland's Ford in the lead.
Been talking about Kurt Busch in that 2 car Dodge. Another Dodge, David Stremme in the 40. You see him peeking out to the high side right
Number
here.
Junior, yeah, he's smoking. Saw a bunch of smoke. I don't know. It could be, you know, they got the fluid levels right up to the top. It could just be a little excess fluid somewhere.
Happened over the little bit of bumps in the middle of turn 2, Darrell.
It could be a little haze off the tires. Could be a little overflow in one of the fluid levels is a little high. Let's see if we can get a better look at it down here in turns 1 and 2. See him down on the bottom right there. He's down low and it's rough down there, real bumpy. Car moves around. Yeah, I think that's tire smoke.
And of course, they start the air pressure in these tires fairly low because they know they're going to gain a lot of air pressure over the course of a long run.
And just think how excited we got. Just think how excited he got. I'm smoking.
Here's what Denny Hamlin saw right behind Junior.
Too wide, too wide.
Yeah, that's just
Clear high if you need it.
That's dust. That's what he wants to do to the field if he gets a chance.
David Gilliland has led every one of 6 laps so far. Tony Stewart's been locked onto his rear bumper, and Kurt Busch in that blue Dodge trying to work the outside with help from David Stremme.
Remember we watched practice the other day and the 38 car sat there and did this lap after lap. You said, why does he keep doing that? Because he can.
Because he can, right. Steve Burns.
Yeah, Mike, but that's a good point because as crew chief Todd Parrott, as I said right before the race, told him stay on the bottom and be patient. He said that's the problem. David knows he has a car good enough to win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, and what a rookie doesn't want to do is if these guys gang up on him like they are right now and he should fall back in the pack, don't panic.
Right.
But he knows right now, especially early in a run, that yellow line, that's his best friend.
Yeah, because you can't go below the yellow line. If you do, you'll be penalized.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a bobble and almost backed into Kevin Harvick in the Pennzoil car.
You know, that little bit of smoke we saw, that could be a tire that there's a problem with.
But you could look through that windshield. You could see his hands. He's pretty busy in that 8 car.
And look, everybody's giving him a lot of room, Darrell.
I mean, right now, we are 8 laps into this race, and we still have 38 cars within 3 seconds of each other.
And the Pied Piper is the young man, 31 years old, from Riverside, California, son of a veteran racer and champion. David Gilliland grew up as crew chief on his father Butch's car.
Plain or peanut?
David Gilliland still leading. He's led every lap of 12 so far. Time for our AT&T Singular Virtual Crew Chief question. Chevy's won the last 6 of the last 8 500s. Which manufacturer has the best chance? to break that string. To answer, text the word crew to 191 on your AT&T Singular wireless phone. Singular is the new AT&T.
Boy, I just saw a lot of give and take as we ride with Jeff Burton right there, which is a great move just 12 laps into this race. You could see Jeff Green in the 66 go up in front of him off turn 2. You could hear Burton roll out of the throttle. Good move, good give and take early in the race.
Yeah, here we are coming to lap 13, and what you're going to hear over the radios right now is in the beginning, I'm a little loose. Wait a minute. I'm getting to be a little tight now. The car's tightening up some, and that's probably what's happening to most of these cars. They're going through a real transition right now. They're burning off some fuel, and they're putting some laps on the tires. This is when you know what you got.
And just to educate our new viewers, when we're talking about loose, we're talking about the back end coming around. When we're talking about tight, the driver's turning the front wheel, but the front wheels are just sliding.
The best explanation of loose and tight is you hit the rear, you hit the wall with the rear of the car when you're loose, you hit the wall with the front of the car when you're pushing.
There you go.
David Gilliland has led every lap. Tony Stewart right on his bumper. What about three-time Daytona 500 winner Jeff Gordon? Gordon's hasn't had an easy start here. He is 21st, and he may have a little bit of damage on the right side of that flame-painted Chevrolet. Top of your screen, right corner. Here he comes.
Just ran out of racetrack there at that turn 2, which is the worst turn we have here. You just run out of racetrack.
What I saw mostly was blue smoke, though, as if the tires were hitting the wall, but maybe not so much body. What are they saying down there, Burns?
Hey, DW, Jeff Gordon says to crew chief Steve Letarte, we are good, but we'll deal with that right rear. He did scrape the wall a little bit in turn 2. Steve Letarte said, no problem, I like your pace.
He's got a great pace. Remember, he started 42nd in this field, 14 laps into it. He's moved up halfway through the field. He's up to 20th right now.
Elevator up, elevator down. 88, the Snickers car. Ricky Rudd started outside pole. He has slid to 20th.
That's nothing to snicker about, I can tell you. Oh. I'm sorry, Mike. I couldn't resist.
But I think we have seen all week long that even though the 88 car, the teammate to David Gilliland, Ricky Rudd, even though he qualified on the outside of the front row, that car has not been as strong as the 38 car.
And the number to look at right here is minus 2.9, now minus 3 seconds. That gap is increasing at the lower right of your screen between the leader and this car.
Sometimes the veterans, though, they'll fall back. They'll just kind of fall back to the rear of the field and kind of scope things out and analyze things a little bit.
Kevin Harvick trying to move up. New colors for that Richard Childress number 29 this year. He's up to 13th, Matt.
Really on the move, Mike, that Chevrolet. Now, he said the car is really good balance-wise. Not talking about what kind of adjustments, but a lot of guys are talking about if we get a caution from 0 to 15 laps into a run, teams are talking about the two-tire scenario, but they've got to be very careful.
Trouble.
Oh, trouble.
Back straight away. One car sliding toward the wall and stops short.
Boris said the 60 car had to race his way in.
Nothing. In the grass in the back straightaway. You all right, Boris?
Caution will wave.
First caution of the day, and it looked to be as if it could have been a single car incident. The veteran road racing champion is going to run half a dozen or so cup races in a car from out of Jack Rouse's shops.
We've seen so much trouble off of turn 2, and again, we'll just point out it's a lot to do with the wind, and then of course you come down off of turn 2 out of the banking over there, the track really flattens out as you come down out of the banking.
Watch the number 60, bottom of your screen.
On the bottom. Wow.
It just looked like that car had that four-wheel drift up off the corner onto the backstretch.
It's almost what happened to Michael in the qualifying race when he got into Dale Jr. That thing just took off, baby. Bam, just like that.
First caution of the day in Daytona.
The Daytona 500 Odd Box is sponsored by Dodge. You can take life as it comes, or you can grab life by the horns. Dodge. By Napa Auto Parts. Napa, get the good stuff. By Coca-Cola. Thanks for drinking. And by Nextel, only from Sprint, helping NASCAR Nextel Cup fans get more done.
We're under caution at Daytona. David Gilliland led the first 18 laps of this race. Everyone has come to pit road. Kurt Busch and his Roger Penske crew got off pit road first. Two cars I want you to watch right there is one, David Gilliland, and way up there is the other, the 55 of Michael Waltrip. Or Boris said, excuse me, Boris said in the 60.
Boris's car right here just takes it. I mean, it just never turns. It's like the front wheels are off the ground, and he just slams into the side of Rudeman in the Domino's Burger King car.
And Darrell, you said Michael was closing fast.
He was closing so
cars.
fast. I'm not so sure they didn't have to lift or something there to. I tell you, you know, they've done a lot of. Look at the rear wheels come off the ground. They've done a lot of things to these racetracks, but paving that back straightaway like that. That's one of the best things they ever did. Otherwise, he'd be flipping by now.
Especially if you go get on grass like he is now. But fortunately, the speed of the car is slow enough. It's not a big deal. Pretty much everyone came to pit road, changed 4 tires. Roy McCauley, that 2 bunts, they won the battle off pit road for Kurt Busch. Very busy place here, 19 laps in there.
There's the race off pit road with Gilliland second, Tony Stewart third. And here's Krista.
A great stop for the number 2 crew. Small changes to keep up with the track. That is the plan for them all day long. This time it was a ½ pound of air pressure in the right rear and 4 tires and fuel. Steve?
Small adjustment for David Gilliland, Krista. They took just a little bit of air pressure out of the left rear tire. David saying his car was just a little bit tight in 1 and 2. He also congratulated his crew on a fine stop, Dick.
Over the last 3 years, Tony Stewart has led more laps here at Daytona than anybody else, although he is yet to lead a lap today. Minor adjustment and 4 tires on that pit stop. Matt.
Dale Jr.'s last plate win was 2004 Talladega. No changes on their car the last stop. Jr. is just cruising. They were just past their window, possibly going with a 2-tire strategy change.
Kurt Busch, Gilliland, Stewart, Earnhardt, Newman are the first 5. Now, David Gilliland, he may be a Daytona 500 rookie, but watch this. He's got to race Tony Stewart, who's in the next pit stall down, out of his pit, and you'll see he gives Stewart no quarter and races him hard until they get up to the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and Gilliland edges ahead.
It's a drag race. He beat him out of the box.
A look from our DLP HD cam, floating cable mounted over the speedway. Phil Parsons was the honorary starter, waved the first green flag. The second one is in the wind. Kurt Busch out front.
It was a single file restart since all 43 cars that we have out there are still on the lead lap.
In the shadows of turns 1 and 2 on the west side of the speedway, they pop back into the sunlight. Exiting 2 down the backstretch, that's where the wind whistles right at them.
See right here as we ride with Dale Earnhardt Jr., you can see the speed building right here. They run the carburetor restrictor plate that takes the horsepower of the engine down. It takes well over a full lap at this 2.5-mile racetrack to get totally up to speed. You can see he's still gaining speed.
This racetrack, Mike, is such a contradiction. I mean, we want to slow the cars down. These are race cars. You bump into your friends. You bump draft your friends. Anywhere else, we kind of take it out on our friends. Everything here is almost like a contradiction.
You're right, Darrell. Several years ago, NASCAR mandated the restrictor plates to slow the cars well below 200 miles an hour. Without the plates, folks estimate the pole speed here would exceed 220 miles an hour.
Oh, 230, I bet you, Mike. I bet it'd be incredible.
For the lead, Stewart looked, Busch to block.
I'm telling you, on turn 4, Tony Stewart in that 20 car, he turned her dead left, and then now they have kicked our pole sitter, David Gilliland, in 38. He's probably going to go from 2nd back to about 7th to get back in line behind David Strimmy in the 40 car.
But he didn't. But what I like is he didn't say, I got to get back in line. I got to get back in line. He didn't force it. He fell to the end of the line. He'll get back up there.
That's another contradiction, Darrell. Patience at 185 miles an hour. Stewart and Jr. hooked up. Familiar drafting partners. Stewart helped draft Junior to his Daytona 500 win.
That would be my biggest worry if I was another competitor. Those two cars getting hooked up. I think it's all over this early in the race if they do.
Stewart looks high, Busch comes up, Stewart looks low. How wide is the track and how much of it can Kurt Busch take up?
But now we're riding with Dale Earnhardt Jr., who moved to the high side. And he has Kurt Busch's teammate, Ryan Newman, in the 12 pushing him.
Can I tell you one thing?
Please.
That irritated Tony Stewart to death. He does not like to be driven, raced against like that this early in the race. Where are you going?
Now Junior has eased off and he'll fall to 6th or 7th. If you get kicked out of line and nobody goes with you, Darrell, it's pretty much a certainty where you're headed.
Well, there's a lake out there and you become one of those sitting ducks.
Now, because this group up here wasn't satisfied with running single file, that 7-car lead pack is about to become about an 18-car lead pack.
Jeff Burton bringing the second group along. They got a little scattered out on the restart. Now it's becoming one big freight train again. Here's our singular virtual crew chief response. Chevrolet's won 19 of 48 500s. It can another make win today. And you said Ford, Dodge, Toyota. We'll get you that.
The thing about these restarts right now, these early cautions, Mike, the reason they get scattered out like this is they're single file. There are no lap cars to start on the inside. So when you restart this thing, the leader's coming by the start-finish line. If you're back there in 30th or further back, you're coming off turn 4 almost. You're going to lose a lot of ground.
Boy, Tony Stewart in the 20 car. Now he has Kyle Busch in the 5. We know he's had a fast race car all week long. He's been looking left and right. But now Kurt Busch continues to block these guys.
And what we saw in the first couple of laps of this race, Steve Burns, is that Kyle Busch was making sudden moves. Fairly aggressive moves to go lane to lane, but sudden moves. And I wonder, Steve, maybe that's why he's having a little trouble finding some drafting help.
Well, Mike, I know I can tell you this about his race car. He did make some sudden moves, but his car became very tight early in this race, particularly on the exit of the corners. What they did was they made a track bar adjustment. They went up 2 rounds to fix that tight condition. Dick?
A few laps ago, Darrell Waltrip complimented David Stremme on being cool when he got kicked toward the back of the pack. Yesterday, in happy hour, the final practice session, Stremme played with the rest of the field, went all the way to the back, and worked his way all the way to the front. And moments before the start of the Daytona 500, he told me he has a car that can pass anywhere, anytime.
He's trying to prove it right now, Dick. That is Stremme in the number 40 on the outside, the lead car in the outside lane. Here's our singular virtual crew chief answer. Ford has the best chance of going to victory lane aside from Chevrolet this year, you said?
One thing I see in Tony Stewart, Larry, Mike, is last year he had a car capable of winning this race. He got in a bunch of little skirmishes out on the racetrack. He and Jeff Gordon off turn 2. He and Matt Kenseth down the back. I think he let his temper and his judgment get the best of him last year. I see a little bit more patience in him this year, like we talked about a little bit ago.
There's no doubt that one of the keys to winning this race, keep your emotions in check.
If you're going to win the big one, you got to play big.
Tony Stewart finished 5th here last year in the race won by Jimmy Johnson, who went on to win the Nextel Cup. .30 laps, 75 miles complete in the 49th annual Daytona 500. Pole sitter David Gilliland led the first 18 laps. From there, it's been this number 2 of Kurt Busch at 185 miles an hour. They're the top Dodge Chargers in the race. Busch, David Stremme, and Ryan Newman, all in the top 10.
Pretty impressed with the Chargers down here. They seem like they've had speed, but with the new front end, the new nose on this Dodge Charger, it just looks like these cars are driving good, which is something they suffered from a lot last year.
Yeah, they politicked all last year to get a nose change. They came with that new nose last year, and it didn't work for them. And they tried every way they could to get NASCAR to give them a concession, but it took the offseason to get it done. And now they look like everybody else. Difference not always better.
You know, we probably should update our current reigning Nextel Cup champion and the defending champion of this race, Jimmy Johnson, in that 48 car right now. We're riding with him. You can see he's in what we call the sucker hole in the middle
group there where you just can't go. And Darrell, I agree totally, and know why you asked him what you did in the pre-race. You just don't look like you've been flexing your muscle, and you see him losing ground right here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's running that well, and it seems like it's not handling that well.
Don't worry. Jimmy told me this morning this car is bad fast. It will come to him. Matt?
Handling-wise, they thought this car was almost excellent in final practice, but Jimmy's been a little bit on the tight side. Now, unlike last year, Earl Barbin is not his spotter. Stevie Reeves, the former USAC champion, has come on board. Basically, Chad called him 3 times, Jimmy called him 5 times. And Stevie said, when you have guys like that that want you so badly, even though it's a high-pressure situation, you got to jump at the chance.
Well, Matt, he has a different spotter, but remember, he also has a different car from what he won the 500 with last year. When you win the Daytona 500, Daytona USA, right behind the Speedway, takes your car, puts it on display for a year. They got that car back about 2 hours ago.
Well, they do give you $100,000, Larry, to lease it to them for the year, but it's not like you have a choice.
No, no.
I don't know. You'd probably, most of these guys would be glad to give them their car.
Oh, yeah. About 43 of them.
Yeah.
If Kurt Busch looks to his right rear, there's a train a-coming, and it's Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, and the rest of those drivers, David Stremme, Matt Kenseth, Jeff Burton, and everybody else in the outside lane hunting the lead on the backstretch.
I like Harvick. I tell you, he's had a good week down here. His car's been fast, and whoops, excuse me. Kyle Busch just made a serious right-hand turn right in front of him. That's some of that give and take, though. You got to be willing to do it this early in the race. People are going to do that to you.
Look at Kyle Busch's car, the 5 car, going through the corner there at well over 185 miles per hour. You can see the back end just going up and down and dancing as we still got a battle for the lead, but Kurt Busch puts the block on Tony Stewart in the 20.
That's how important it is to stay up front, though. You get back in traffic like maybe Jeff Gordon has been, and maybe even Jimmy Johnson. These cars don't handle the same back there amongst all of them as it does out there by itself.
You're running flat out, Darrell, but every time you change lane, it takes away a little momentum, and look at the consequence. It brings the whole field right to you.
Well, that, and then we're into a run here a few laps now, and the tire's starting to go away a little bit, and that throttle's hard to hold down once these tires give up.
Car's out of control.
That was Kurt Busch. Krista?
Yeah, a lot of communication going on down here. Roy McCauley just telling Kurt, yeah, I know, Tony, I've warned him a couple times, so they're trying to get word down from one pit to another. Kurt, though, is really concerned with how the tires are wearing. Darrell, you're just talking about that. He just asked his crew chief, how many laps have I got on these tires right now? It's 15 laps on the tires, Roy McCauley just told him. So that's what he's concerned with right now.
Well, the teams are going through a little learning curve right now. Take a set off. The track was, like we said, didn't have any, it rained overnight. A little different racetrack than we've seen here for the last 2 weeks. Got to get some data. Oh, let up, Junior. Let up, boy.
Boy, Elliott Sadler backing up in a quick hurry there.
And he had really been making a move to the front, but he got caught in the middle right there.
Come outside, dude. Come outside.
$18 laps led for David Gilliland, the pole sitter. Kurt Busch will lead his 18th lap this time around.
I want the cup.
Nearly 40 laps into the Daytona 500. Kurt Busch, who has twice finished second in this race, currently your leader. His owner, Roger Penske, has won 14 Indy 500s. But hoping that Kurt Busch could give him a Daytona 500. A quick Fox Racing break. If you're just tuning in, we're glad to have you along. David Gilliland, his first Daytona 500, starting on the pole and leading the first 18 laps. Ricky Rudd, Robert Yates racing alongside. Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting 5th, bouncing between 6th and 10th most of this race. Jeff Gordon, who was at the back of the pack, scrapes the wall.
Yeah, he does a little bit of a Daytona slam off of turn 2. And that was followed just a lap or two later, on lap 16, whenever Borsett come up and slammed into the 00 of David Rudeman around. He went bringing out the first caution.
Daytona slam, all of the Darlington straight, but Jeff Gordon working his way back up.
Yeah, he may have started 42nd. He really is coming up through here right now. He is looking like he's got a good hand on the race car, and that shot did not help him, it didn't look like.
Jeff Gordon, one of those drivers, 4 others working without their crew chiefs because of rule infractions and penalties handed out this week.
And so far, everything looks pretty good. These guys all look very competitive right now. I think that, Michael Waltrip's the only one that's kind of struggling early on, but look for Michael to rally back.
Actually, Steve Letarte working with Jeff Gordon, who is hoping for another Daytona 500. Let's rejoin Darrell, Larry, and Mike.
5-car breakaway at the front of the field, Chris. Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, Kurt's younger brother Kyle Busch, David Gilliland, Ryan Newman. And then it's about a half a second back to Kevin Harvick in 6th. That yellow car of Harvick's has come from 34th starting position. Big climb, biggest gainer of the day, ahead of his teammate Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Matt Kenseth.
I think what I just heard on that audio, if you notice, Tony Stewart is starting to lay back just a little bit off Kurt Busch. These guys run a tremendous amount of tape on the front end openings where the air goes in to cool the radiator and the oil cooler. And it sounds like maybe they have too much tape. He's starting to run hot. That's the reason he's not tucked right up on the 2-car Kurt Busch right now.
And something that's playing out just like I saw in the qualifying races is the 48 and the 24 and the 25, the Hendrick cars that have been so dominant on these restrictor plate tracks, they appear to be struggling to me. They just don't have the speed that they have had in the past.
Well, none of those cars, Darrell, were very fast in the last practice yesterday either.
And really, I mean, Jeff won his qualifying race, we know that, but he did it on pit strategy. He come in, he grabbed a couple of tires and was able to get the lead there at the very end.
There's Gordon, was flashing past in his 24.
And the thing about those good race teams like that, here he comes right there, as you can see, but you never know what their strategy is. They might just be riding along, who knows.
You know, it almost looked like that last time off turn 2 again, the 24 car, Jeff Gordon, just all but against the wall again. And we're getting a report that he did skim the wall just a little bit.
Well, let's have a look.
There he is up behind Jimmy. And you know what? I think it looked like something happened to Jimmy Johnson because I saw smoke come out of his tailpipe. Let's see if he lets off. Oh, yeah, he let off.
And he hit the wall as well.
And that sucked Gordon in there with him.
Gotta run. Side. 26 coming to you with a big push.
Some of that handling, some of it could be these huge wind gusts that we're having that hit the cars just as they come down off the turn 2 banking. Steve.
Mike, listening to Jeff Gordon in that 24 car, the longer the run goes, the tighter his race car gets. When he first gets the new tires on, he feels great, but right now that car continues to tighten up. Matt.
Air pressure change in the last stop, Steve, did not help Jimmy Johnson's balance. The car still tight, and Larry Mack, you talked about that Daytona 500 winner from a year ago. Chad Canal started building this very race car back in July 2006.
Oh, yeah, it's something these guys work on well before the old season actually ends. But I think a couple of things that's happening. As Darrell mentioned earlier in the broadcast that the racetrack was green from being washed off last night. Now some rubbers get down on the track as we're 44 laps into this race. And that kind of sometimes can enhance the car not wanting to turn. Plus, this is the longest green run. You burn fuel off, the car gains nose weight, and that actually magnifies the push too.
Yeah, I want to try to give you a visual to go along with some of this explanation about why cars are hitting the wall off of turn 2. As we look back down the straightaway, and they come off of turn 2, you see how the cars come down, what we call down out of the banking.
Possibly a problem, Darrell, on the 17 of Matt Kenseth. Let's check with Krista.
Yeah, Matt said he thinks he may be getting a flat left rear tire. He said the car is so tight, he cannot do anything with it.
Yeah, you can see he's had to move the car up to the top of the racetrack now and continues to lose a few positions.
He's at 10th place right now, just in front of Stremme, right behind his Roush Racing teammate, Carl Edwards.
As you come off turn 2, back there, what I was going to tell you is you come off turn 2, you run out of, as soon as you run out of banking, the track kind of flattens out, and the crosswind that we've got right now, it's basically just pushing the car right into the wall.
And Darrell, at these speeds, it doesn't take much of a push, does it?
Oh no, you've heard us say you can walk up on these cars in the middle of the corner and touch it, it'd spin out. Especially if you touch it with 3,400-pound race car.
Tony Stewart in that 20 car, he is trying every bit of this racetrack to try to get by Kurt Busch in the 2 car, with Kurt's brother Kyle in the 5 pushing him.
Still time to register your choice for today's Domino's Hot Lap. Text your selection among today's top 5 qualifiers to FOXSP on any wireless phone.
definitely seeing the cars get strung out just a little bit, and I think a lot is because, as we mentioned, we're on the longest green flag run that we've had here today, and we're getting well past the halfway point of that. In fact, about 15 laps away probably from a pit stop.
Well, these cars run off of momentum. I mean, you have a limited amount of horsepower. If you start having to burp that throttle just a little bit, even if you don't think you're lifting, oh, I'm not lifting that much, it slows them down. And that's what's happening. Some of these cars, the handling's gone off. They're having to squeeze up out of that throttle just a little bit.
Dick Berger and Tony Stewart has been in second place almost this entire race.
Yeah, he has. My car is pushing a little bit, but the interesting story here is that envoys from both of the Penske teams, Kurt Busch and Ryan Newman, have been down here to Stewart's pit so that they can get together and pit together. Matt?
Kevin Harvick predicted before the race that you would see people break away in packs. He's been trying to stay in line with the 12 car of Ryan Newman. He was glad to see those guys in the front get dicey so he and Newman can slowly try to reel back in that lead pack.
Got a lead change, guys. He finally made it.
Tony Stewart to the outside, second lead change today. Ooh, Kyle Busch.
Well, what Kyle sees is the 12 car coming. 12's going to jump down behind the 2, and more than likely they could both. They're both going to go right back by Kyle. That's why he wanted to help Tony as much as he could to try to keep that from happening.
Kyle, the younger of the Busch brothers, in the 5. Ryan Newman in the blue 12. He is the teammate to Kurt Busch. Let's have another look at that as Tony Stewart comes to the front of the race he most wants to win.
Just swings to the outside, gets a lot of momentum right there, gets a good push from the 5 from behind, and you can see he left the 2 cars sitting out.
But Darrell, does he complete that pass if the 5 doesn't go with him?
Well, I think he could get out there. He probably wouldn't have been able to stay in front of him.
So Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch's brother, did away with that part of it, went with another Chevrolet to complete that pass.
Imagine that. Tony Stewart, 2-time series champion, is the 3rd driver to lead today's Daytona 500. Tony Stewart continues to lead at 53 laps, 53 of 200 complete. Aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, helping NASCAR drivers get to the finish line for the past 25 years. Goodyear, get there. It's big, it's bad, it's victory red. Go to foxsports.com/Silverado for your chance to meet Dale Jr. and drive away in his all-new 2007 Chevy Silverado. Jr. right now in 8th place behind Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch, Ryan Newman, David Gilliland, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and Jeff Burton. Carl Edwards and David Stremme round out the top 10.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with hanging out back around the top 10 or 15 right now. Nothing really happening up front, a little dicing and slicing for the lead every now and then, but basically you're just trying to get to your next stop, make another adjustment. I tell you though, these guys are working hard right now, Larry. Look inside of Casey Kane's car right here. Look at him work that wheel. That car is hitting the bumps in the track and bouncing him around. Look at his head move. That's how he's working hard, and every muscle in his body is tense. That's Mikey right there. He's a little more relaxed, but you can tell his car is tight. Look where his right hand was, way over to the left.
Ricky Rudd, outside pole sitter.
It's a lot of pressure on you, and every muscle in your body is tense.
You know, back going looking at Michael Waltrip, as he got up on the straightaway, you could see him almost exercising his right hand, which tells me he's having to work that steering wheel pretty hard, just relaxing it, resting a little bit up on the straightaway.
You'll catch yourself after a while saying, man, I got to relax. You're just so tensed up trying to hang on to that thing.
Little talk between the 2 and the 20, the 2 leading cars, Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch's cars, about when to pit.
See, there's another contradiction. Working with the other guys. You're supposed to be trying to beat them.
Consorting with the enemy.
Yeah.
What do you call it, though, Darrell? Co-opetition.
Yeah. You do what you got to do right now.
But let's explain why these guys want to come to pit road together. You would think you would want to be on there on the wide open pit road, but we know how the draft works here. We know how much faster cars lined up are versus a car by yourself. So when you comes time for your green flag pit stop, you would like to be on there, I think, in the perfect world with about 10 or 12 cars. That way you come in together. You got to make sure you're all on the same strategy, which I'd say most of these guys will change 4 tires. That way you leave together and you can get back up to speed quicker as a pack.
But see, it's strategy. That's a Chevrolet leading the race. That's a Dodge running second and third, but they're going to work together right now because it's in their best interest.
Who's your best friend?
Your buddy out there, whoever's leading the race.
The guy that can help you the most.
That's right.
Who's near you that's fastest? This is just the first race of the Nextel Cup season. Next Sunday will be at California Speedway in Fontana, the Auto Club 500 on Fox. Matt?
Mike Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s new best friend is Jeff Burton. That's who he wants to run with right now. Junior's running the high line down in 1 and 2. The car just way too tight down in 3 and 4. They should hit pit road on or about lap 64. Deals already being made. One of Kevin Harvick's crew members has been up and down pit road. We saw Matt Borland down talking to the 55 team. Everybody trying to get together to pit.
Thanks, Matt. It takes 49 seconds to lap this track. And right now, 25 seconds behind is the Haviland Dodge for Formula One Ace 1 Pablo Montoya. He says the car is really tight. He goes in the corner, car doesn't want to turn.
And I'm watching the lap times. This backs up what I was talking about running by yourself. Right now, he is a second slower by himself versus a group of cars running together.
And I think part of that could be, it's not that maybe there's something wrong with the car. If you're not accustomed to really hanging in the draft and you got to be quick on these restarts and get out of the pits with all the good cars, this is what can happen to you.
The team is getting ready to pit in just a few laps. We'll take a pit stop now. 58 laps complete in the Daytona 500 on Fox.
The Daytona 500 on Fox is sponsored by Chevy. The most wins in NASCAR history. An American Revolution.
All 3 Evernham cars pit together under green. The Dodges of Casey Kane, Elliott Sadler, and Scott Riggs. And Riggs came in tight to the wall anticipating a 2-tire change. They had a little trouble getting 4 on, and Riggs will lose quite a bit of time there.
In the lap before that, we had 3 cars that hit pit road. The 2 Toyotas of Michael Waltrip and Dale Jarrett, as well as the 7-car Ford of Robbie Gordon.
Here's Tony Raines in. Terry Labonte, a past champion of the series, drove this car here last year. Raines picking up the ride. He was signed in the preseason, but he and Labonte shared the ride in 2006. 2 leaders haven't changed as Montoya comes to pit road.
Yeah. This is when, Larry, as you well know, you sit on that pit box and hold your breath.
Well, in the perfect
get these
world,
things cycled through. Yeah,
in the perfect world, you're going to go down a lap here making a 4-tire stop on the green. So in the perfect world, what you hope is it cycles through the entire green flag pit stops without a caution falling in there.
10 cars in line, all coming to pit road at the same time, Steve.
Hey, Mike, Juan Pablo Montoya saying his car is silly tight. He said, I can't even run around on the apron. They made a huge adjustment on the track bar on the 42.
2 of the 3 Childress cars in, and a big group this time. Dave Blaney, Jeff Gordon is in, Jamie McMurray, and more. Matt?
And the 31 of Burton is in, as well as the 1 of Truex. They're making a chassis adjustment on the 1 of Truex. Burton, they want to go back on the air pressure of the car. It was too loose in the middle of the corner, and it was tight on exit.
Ricky Rudd, David Stremme, Mark Martin among those who pit this time. Reed Sorensen in.
I don't believe Montoya's problem is a new problem. I saw him talking to Donnie Wingo, and he had his arms crossed up like he was trying to show him how hard he was having to turn the thing to the left. That was in practice yesterday.
Here's Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch on pit road. Jimmy Johnson coming as well as you watch on board Johnson, along with his teammate Casey Mears, Sterling Marlin, and Ken Schrader. Steve?
Kyle Busch in the 5-car on pit road, Mike. They made a track bar adjustment, but they got way too tight. This time they're going to adjust with wedge. Matt?
Chassis adjustment already completed for Kevin Harvick Chevrolet. His car at the end of that run just gone to the tight side. Significant changes on the 48. The defending 500 winner Jimmy Johnson. His car was very tough to hold on to. You saw him graze the wall. Service almost complete. He's finally down and away.
3 leaders in. Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch, David Gilliland, and the 12 of Ryan Newman. Krista?
The number 2 of Kurt Busch is in, hoping for the kind of stop they had last time where they got out first. This time, another air pressure adjustment. Dick Berggren.
Stops his car absolutely perfectly. They are going to make a minor chassis adjustment in this car. All 7 men over the wall worked this team last year. Steve.
Adjustment for David Gilliland as well. He stalled the car exiting pit road. It's a little bit tight. Matt?
The 8 of Dale Earnhardt Jr., they've already made their chassis adjustment. He, like so many others, car just fighting a little bit tight, worse on one end than the other. He smokes him as he leaves his pit stall number 1.
A little bit worried about Gilliland. He came into pit really, really hot on entering down here, and then he killed the engine as he left. So that was a little bit of a disaster for him. And I hope NASCAR didn't get him for speeding.
Another rookie, David Reagan, veteran Mike Wallace. And all 3 Joe Gibbs-owned cars, Stewart, J.J. Yaley, and Denny Hamlin, all came in on the same lap.
Here's what I'm talking about, Mike. You can see how far back he is behind Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch. And here comes the 38 Gilliland. And, man, he can't get it wound up. He's got the brakes locked up, smoking the tires. He gets his stop finally.
He had to beat at 55 miles per hour by the time he got to that yellow line, which is where the commit cone is.
And NASCAR has reported that he did slow his speed sufficiently before he got to the next scoring loop on pit road. No penalty on David Gilliland.
Good for him.
Well, it took us about 5 to 6 laps to cycle through the green flag stops. There's your leader right there, Tony Stewart in the 20 car with Kurt Busch in the 2 in tow, and they've actually pulled a little bit away from Ryan Newman in the 12 and David Gilliland in the 38.
Yes, good job, guys.
Stewart to his crew, led by Kensington, Connecticut's Greg Zipadelli.
I tell you, the 20 car has been on such a roll down here. He's just qualified well. He's won 3 races already. Looking good.
Where's the rest of the field? About 2 seconds behind the lead duo of Stewart and Kurt Busch. 66 laps complete.
The Daytona 500 on Fox is sponsored by the new Ford Super Duty, built to work harder for you. By DirecTV, just say ride shotgun on race day with NASCAR Hot Pass only on DirecTV. By DLP, HD TV, powered by DLP. It's amazing. It's the mirrors. And by Domino's Pizza. Check us out at Team Domino's.
70 laps complete in the Daytona 500. Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch had about 2 seconds on the field last time by. The pack cut it to 1.6, and they are closing in on the lead duo. Fox Sports and Texas Instruments team up this year to bring a memorable moment to you from each track. The DLP Amazing Moment revisits the rich, exciting history of NASCAR. 2003. This won't make Ryan Newman's highlight reel. It sure made ours. DLP, it's amazing. It's the mirrors.
Tell you one thing, I was just watching, guys. 38 car way back, and man, he got us pull off at turn 2 over there, and he's on the back bumper of these guys now. That thing is bad fast.
Let's show you what happened to Gilliland coming off turn 4 a couple laps ago. Watch the 38.
Ooh. That car's handling good, though. It'll handle on the apron.
I was going to say, though, I think that's the one thing that they have had, Todd Parrott, his crew chief, they've had all week long. I talked to Todd. His car is turning so good, he just turned it down there, and it went down on the apron.
And look what's happened to the lead. Stewart and Busch were all by themselves out single file, but the 5 cars behind them teamed up, ran single file, and ran the leaders down.
And yeah, I was watching them. As long as they were lined up, they were beating Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch over a second a lap.
If you can get a sniff, what we call a sniff, if you can see where the 31 car is back there, and you see the lead pack in front of him, that's Burton trying to catch back up to the back of Gilliland, you can catch them if you can sniff them.
Well, you saw that highlight of Ryan Newman from 2003. Dick, Newman's having a much better day today.
Oh, yes, he sure is, Mike. And one good measure of how good a race car is how much they have to change it during the running of a race. So far, Newman has made 2 pit stops. They have made no adjustments, just fuel and tires. That's it.
History of sorts was made today when 4 Toyotas rolled off the starting grid and into a Nextel Cup point race. There's Dave Blaney's number 22, just ahead of Jimmy Johnson, the Caterpillar Camry. For the first time since 1963, when Smokey Wood drove an MG on a quarter-mile at Winston-Salem, North Carolina, a foreign nameplate has competed in an Nextel Cup point race. There are 4 Toyotas in the field. There are 8 entered for the entire season of Nextel Cup racing. And try as we could, as the Bowman Gray archives could, as all our photographer friends could, we can't find a photo of Smokey Cook's MG, but we'd sure like to see one. Contact us at Fox Sports in Los Angeles if you can shed any light on the little number 32 MG. Here's our Toyota top performers at present.
And all those Camrys are built right here in the USA, up in Georgetown, Kentucky.
And that's why we say foreign nameplate, Darrell. We know that some of the Fords may be built in Canada or Chevys in Mexico, and it's become a global economy. But to distinguish nameplates, that's where we are.
Riding with Clint Boyer right now, the 07 car. He's sitting in the 6th position, one of the Richard Childress Racing cars. You look right here, Darrell talked earlier, these guys are on fresh tires. If you notice, the brake is not an issue.
Just hung a 12 out up there, just trying to stay in line.
But if you notice, pretty much all the way around this racetrack, you stay pretty much, as Darrell put it, wide open. You never lift the throttle. Now, we'll check this telemetry on later in this run. I bet you'll see where Clint Boyer is rolling out of the throttle. But right now, all 3 of the Richard Childress Racing cars are up there in the top 8. They didn't qualify very good a week ago. I talked to Richard. He brought a little different engine combination here, and it has definitely showed up with a little more torque in the engine where they're racing and not for that fast qualifying lap.
There's where the Childress Chevrolets are at present. Harvick in 3rd. And Clint Boyer made a move up to 5th. He was 6th last time by the start-finish line. Harvick won the 300-mile preliminary, the Busch Series race here yesterday.
You know, Mike, one thing about the Tony Stewart's cars, chassis number 70, that's their 4th of July car. Now, normally a team will bring a car here for the 4th of July race, 100 degrees, track hot, slick, sliding around with a lot of downforce built into it. I just wonder, Larry, if they brought that car here because they knew they had a tire situation here that's a little different than they've had in the past, and they wanted a little bit more downforce built into it.
Well, there's no question the cars have been sliding around more this entire week. Goodyear did bring a little harder compound right side tire, slides a little more from the very get-go, so definitely more downforce pressure on the car can't hurt you.
Let's check downstairs with Jeff Hammond.
Mike, to add to Darrell and Larry's discussion, the one thing I'd like to point out too, guys, remember this test that was run down here by the 20 car was done without Tony Stewart behind the wheel. So if that's the case, Greg Zipadelli and that whole entire Joe Gibbs team did an excellent job of figuring this car out, because remember, Tony was out running the Chili Bowl.
And credit Mike McLaughlin, the Busch Series driver and former modified champ, who was behind the wheel for that test.
And that's not the first time that Mike has done the testing at Daytona Talladega for these groups. But I think one thing you can also credit it to, they have not torn one of their restrictor plate race cars up in a long time. They're just able to fine tune and make it better.
Yeah, I don't know about no Chili Bowl. I'd want to run the Super Bowl if it's me.
He's doing a pretty good job of that right now.
Looks like he might be able to do both, huh?
Tony wants to win them all. He won an open wheel race in Fort Wayne. He won the Chili Bowl in Tulsa. And he's won 2 races here this week. Pretty good start. We're under the second caution of the day at Daytona. Problem on Kyle Petty's car, which we'll show you in a moment. Right now, pit stops are the order of the day. Here is Kyle. The damage to Kyle's car is to the right rear. Krista?
Kurt Busch needs his Miller Lite Dodge to be just a little bit looser. The way they're going to solve that is by going up just a bit on the track bar. Kurt saying he can get to Tony. He just can't get up there and stick. Steve?
Krista, Kyle Busch just told his crew, I ran over something going 200 miles an hour. Check the valence, Dick.
Tony Stewart has just stalled his car on pit road. There's an accident directly in front of him. The 7 car sideways in front of him as well. Stewart finally out of his pit. Matt.
Slight chassis adjustment for Kevin Harvick. One end of the racetrack, there's shade. He's a little loose on the turns 3 and 4. He's tight. They feel lucky, though, because Dale Earnhardt Jr. says that a part of the metal has hit his race car. He has asked his team to take a good look at it, as well as his spotter, Steve Meal. Back to Dick Bergeron.
And there is a potential problem with Tony Stewart's car. He said that as they are going around under caution, under slow speeds, the oil pressure drops to 20 pounds. So he is going to change gear under those caution flag laps to try to keep the oil pressure up so he doesn't starve the engine of oil.
Well, let's go back to where all this started. And then we have the dust up on pit road as you see Tony Stewart. Kyle Petty, debris came off Kyle's car when he had a tire problem. Tony ran over some of it. And then this.
That's serious right there. That's that right front fender that he had problems with in the qualifying race. And the Bud shootout, I'm sorry, that he had to get fixed before he could run very well.
And it also blocked Tony Stewart in a 20 car. He almost was involved in that, but they were heads up enough to stop. And that's whose shoulders I put this whole thing on. That driver can't make that call buckled in that race car. It has to be on the shoulders of the crew chiefs and the spotters.
The big side headrests on these cars to protect the drivers, give them very little peripheral vision. Now you see what happened to Kyle Petty. A right rear tire let go and just shredded and sent itself through the sheet metal. Some of that ended up on the track.
Guys, we got a tire wrapped around the housing. You've got to get that off, okay?
That's Kyle's spotter. And after Kyle dropped that tire and those metal pieces, look at Tony Stewart, top of your screen, running right over it.
I'm surprised the spotter didn't give him a heads up on that. Maybe he did and we don't hear it, but I'm surprised. There's debris back there. Man, that was serious.
Good thing is he got rid of those 4 tires and he came to pit road.
Second caution of the day in the Daytona 500 on Fox. Our pole sitter David Gilliland may have made a rookie mistake leaving his pit. It turned Robbie Gordon around and put a little damage on the right front of that Robert Yates Ford. Tony Stewart, meanwhile, was too fast exiting pit road when he came back in for further repair, so he restarts tail end of the longest line. That's not much of a penalty. That's about where he would have been after that second stop.
But once again, I want to go back to David Gilliland. I know we could call that a rookie mistake, but we had 40 cars on pit road at one time under caution. I just feel like there should be more on the shoulders of the crew chief, or especially the spotter, looking down on pit road to let him know, hey, a car coming in, if nothing else, just stop.
Kevin Harvick is the 4th different driver to lead today's Daytona 500.
But there's about 3 or 4 guys that are consistent, have been consistently at the front. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman, they've been there all the time.
So Stewart and Gilliland will have to come from the back along with Jimmy Johnson, who made another pit stop for the lead. Kurt Busch on the outside, trying to lead for the second time today. Little brother with a helping hand.
Now with help from brother, here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car along with Jeff Burton in the 31. They're trying to help Kevin Harvick in the 29.
Speeds continue to build on the full lap of the restart. And look at the outside lane, full head of steam. Here comes Jeff Gordon with David Stremme and Denny Hamlin in the FedEx car.
That happened because they had the inside line slowed down from the bump.
Who's your daddy?
Who's your brother right now?
That was Denny Hamlin. And that was a big charge on the outside by Hamlin, Stremme, and Jeff Gordon.
I always had a theory. If you could hang around on the lead lap and get through the first couple of cautions, you had a chance.
Like a squadron of fighters, Kurt Busch has plenty of company, and they're not all friendlies.
Right now, 3 to 4 laps after that restart, we have 21 cars within about a second and a half of each other, a lot of them 2 and 3 wide.
And what these crew chiefs are telling guys that fell out of that first 4 or 5 car draft earlier, you got to keep up with this pack.
Denny Hamlin on the outside. Stremme still with him in the outside lane. Scott Riggs' car was smoking. He brought it to pit road, and they're sending Riggs to the garage. He'll be the second retiree. Dale Earnhardt Jr. out of the pack, down on the bottom and a little off the pace.
Looks like, I don't know, the car's certainly not handling like he wants to do. You see it kind of bobbling around there. I'm not sure if he's got a problem. He may be coming to pit road. Let's see what happens here.
No, but he continues to lose ground.
Man, look at his hands in there, guys. Look at those gloves. Left, right, left, right. That's the way I play golf.
I mean, he absolutely had his hands full.
You got me too loose there, brother. I'm reckon getting you to 3 on the bottom coming off the floor.
Matt?
That's exactly what Dale Jr. was telling Tony Jr. He said, we are just so loose. Tony Jr. under that caution was asking what the temperatures were because the car feels like it's got too much drag. They're looking to see if the temperatures come down as the day wears on. They can add a little more tape to that grill. Right now, Jr. trying to find a safe place just to ride.
Well, a little piece of tape is like a wake-up call to these race cars because it cuts that airflow down into the radiator, picks up speed.
And he looks like he has found a place because what he did, he fell to the back of this pack. So right now he'll be back in 20th position. 2 laps ago, he was up there in 4th in the 8 car.
Sometimes, Larry, and you know, with the fresh tires, low air pressure, things, cars don't drive real good for a lap or 2.
And Darrell, I got to believe part of that, of course, as we've heard, what everybody's experiencing is the car's not turning. So it's almost like these teams and crew chiefs are working to continue to free the cars up. They could especially be too free or loose at the beginning of a run.
Kyle Busch made a move to the right there in the middle of the straightaway and almost collected Denny Hamlin. Kyle in the 5. Older brother Kurt in the 2.
Well, these first 4 or 5 guys, you know, they've been out there riding by themselves single file. All of a sudden they're asking their spotter, where'd that guy come from?
A little bit of bump draft there on David Stremme in the Coors Light car. Krista, how about the 11?
Well, the 11 is on the move. He's been complaining about being a little bit tight off turn 2. They loosened the car up on the last stop, but another thing that's helping him is a pin that he's wearing on his fire suit. A FedEx employee, a local driver, gave him the pin today. Denny was wearing it on his suit. Denny said he went to thank him, and the guy was gone. I guess it's kind of his Federal Express angel, if you will. Dick?
After that round of pit stops, everybody got back out on the racetrack. Tony Stewart and company decided that they needed to come back into the pits and take a look at the front valence. When Kyle Petty blew that tire, Stewart had run over some debris, so they pulled out the front valence, and they've got that all squared away. But when the green flag dropped, instead of leading, Tony Stewart restarted 40th. He's up to 35th now.
But Dick, he had nothing to lose by coming back to pit road to make sure everything was good, because remember about the pit road speeding penalty. The penalty was he had to start at the tail end of the longest line, so nothing lost by coming back to pit road.
Yeah, the only thing you lose is you get back in that traffic, and boy, that can be a nightmare with a, you know, even with a good race car.
Kurt Busch is a past champion of this series. He grew up in Las Vegas, raced dwarf cars and then late models, stocked supermarket shelves before being tapped to move up to NASCAR. UPS delivers the chance to manage your own free fantasy auto racing league. Go to foxsports.com for more information.
And why is he fighting for the lead so hard? The kind of year he had last year. Here he is on the big stage, and he's the star of the show right now.
Kurt Busch in front of Kyle, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Newman, David Stremme. We're closing in on halfway in the Great American Race.
You're watching the Daytona 500 on Fox, brought to you by Singular. Singular is the new AT&T.
Singular is the new AT&T as Jeff Burton races in 4th position behind Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, and Ryan Newman.
Larry, is it just my imagination? We listen to these guys all the time. I don't hear anybody screaming like we used to do.
And, you know, for the most part, you and I've talked about it all week. Everybody has been pretty happy with the way their race car's been driving down here for the most part. We need to update our Bud pole sitter, David Gilliland, in a car that ran pretty much in the top 5, the top 10 most of the race, had the accident on pit road, and right now he is a lonely man about a half lap down to our leader, Kurt Busch. We don't like to see cautions, but I guarantee you David Gilliland would like to see some type of caution right now where Todd Parrott and that group can go to work on that car.
Based on what I'm seeing, he might get his wish.
We are 4 laps from halfway. 41 of the 43 starters still running on the lead lap. Kyle Petty went to the garage after that tire failure, and now Krista is with the second driver to fall from the race.
Yeah, Scott Riggs was actually just underneath the car, taking a look, working on it. Scott, what happened out there?
Not sure exactly. I mean, we broke a transmission somehow. I know when I come in the first pit stop there, overshot my pits, put it in reverse and backed up. Didn't feel like it broke anything then, but obviously it could have, and finally started coming apart there. So, you know, it's my fault. You know, it's supposed to be overshooting your pits. Supposed to know better than that.
It's been a rough week already for the Evernham teams. A rough debut for the team engineers, filling in at team director Kevin Kidd and Scott Riggs.
They have had a rough week with Evernham Motorsports.
Another of the drivers whose team was penalized and whose crew chief is watching from home is Matt Kenseth. There's the yellow DeWalt Ford, highest running Ford in the race. Kenseth in 7th place right now, tacked on to David Stremme in the 40. And he's been consistently in the top 10 most of the day.
He's just been hanging out right there, lurking, just watching the laps wind through this race. And yeah, he's under the direction of Chip Boland, who is the lead engineer for the 17 team.
And Chip will be running that team next week when we run the Auto Club 500 on Fox from California, as Robbie Reiser sits out his suspension for unapproved aerodynamic adjustments during pole position qualifying.
You know, a guy that started this Daytona 500 at the back of the pack, and it didn't look like he was going to make a lot of moves after he got about mid-pack, but Jeff Gordon in the 24 car, he has made his way into the top 10 right now in the 10th position.
Yeah, Larry, looks like he's pretty good on new tires for, you know, maybe 10 or 12 laps. All of a sudden I notice he's gotten to run the high line now, which tells me the car might be pushing and he's got to get up a little high with it.
2 laps to halfway. Kurt Busch trying to become the first Dodge to visit Daytona 500 victory lane in 5 years. Ward Burton won here in 2002, failed to make the race this year. Kurt's younger brother Kyle right in tow, and that worked pretty well at one of the races earlier in the week until Kurt decided to go his own way and hung little brother out to dry.
Yeah, and he ended up finishing, Kurt ended up finishing second to, at that point, the winner, Jeff Gordon, in that second dual race on Thursday. Yeah, we talked to Kyle a couple of days ago. He wasn't real pleased with older brother Kurt.
But he has a fast car, and fast cars will find friends. Tony Stewart's led a lot of laps today, 32 of them. Watch Stewart's number 20 and Montoya's 42.
And you can see Tony's car just, it's not turning. He's got the wheel turn, but there for a moment it would not turn until he used Mr. Montoya for a bank.
And Tony has not made that much ground up. He's only up to the 32nd position. He started back in 40th, but this is the first time during the day he's had to be back in traffic.
We are halfway in the Daytona 500 on Fox.
The Daytona 500 on Fox is sponsored by Chevy, the most wins in NASCAR history, an American revolution. By Radio Shack. By Pepsi. And by State Farm. Great service, great rates. Nobody takes care of you like State Farm.
Just past the halfway point, 103 laps. There is your top 5. 30 cars running within 6 seconds of each other as they snake down that 3,000-foot backstretch here in Daytona Beach. Let's get out to Jeff Hammond for today's State Farm Safety Report.
One of the new safety improvements for 2007 has to be the new fuel cell, 17 3/4 gallons, but it's the bladder inside, much tougher than years past. Plus, they've relocated the check valve itself. In years past, we used to have a check valve system. When the car got upside down, it would seal the fuel off with check valves, heavy steel balls. Now they've come up with this new check valve with a flapper system. As you can see, it does the same thing. When the car gets upside down, it seals the fuel off. But with this new system, it's much safer.
Thanks, Jeff. Safety a prime concern of NASCAR and of all of these teams.
And that 17 3/4 gallon fuel cell that we're running here, that's about 4.5 more gallons than the cars had here last year, which lets them go about 10 or 12 more laps on green flag conditions on fuel.
Excuse me there. David Stremme just about got turned around by Kevin Harvick.
He did.
Harvick had to back so far out of the gas. Jeff Green got to him, so did Martin Truex, so did Matt Kenseth, and so did Dale Jarrett. Now
This
will
right
take
there.
your breath like it took mine.
This is scary right here. That is.
He had quite a bit of help, it looked like.
I guarantee you. It got Stremme's attention.
Hardly slowed Stremme's car, but it took all the momentum away from Harvick.
And everyone else there around them.
And up here.
Well, once again, we're at that point in a run. We're about a little over halfway through a run. These tires just seem to really give out after about 15 to 20 laps. The cars really start handling poorly. It's not the tires' fault. It's just the setup they have.
All drivers take a great deal of pride in their equipment and personal grooming. Darrell Waltrip had a chrome helmet at one time, and I believe Kevin Harvick has gone him one better. Matt?
Mike, from the Unique and Cool to Know file, Kevin Harvick and the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican Rome has something in common. 500 years ago, Michelangelo used a variegated red type gold leaf when he painted the ceiling. 500 years later, Jason Beam, Harvick's helmet painter, uses the same exact process. Instead, he doesn't use berries to make the red and the gold. He uses a certain kind of varnish and oil, but still a very pretty helmet, as Harvick has new colors all the way around for 2007.
That's a pretty helmet, man.
It is pretty.
That gold leaf, I love. Remember old Calhoun that ran at Indy? Number 98.
Parnelli, the Agajanian car that Parnelli Jones
had
drove.
those gold leaf numbers on it.
Beautiful.
I love that thing. But you know one thing you better have on that helmet, because it's getting that time of the day, you better have a good shield, dark shield on your helmet, because the sun coming off of turn 4 is going to be a problem here before too long. I've been down here testing before, man. You just had to come off turn 4 and just kind of guess where you were, and that was by yourself.
Harvick has led 3 laps today. He's one of 4 drivers to lead this race. Kurt Busch has led 54 laps. That's the most of anyone. And it's only the second race at Daytona that Busch has led, even though he has 2 second-place finishes in the 500. He's only led once before today.
You know, one car that actually ended up with a pretty good starting spot, the 99 car for Roush Fenway, Carl Edwards. He's sitting right now in the 6th spot. I talked to Carl last night. And Darrell, you talked about Tony Stewart in the 20 car earlier that decided to come down here probably with more downforce. That's kind of the direction that Bob Osborne, his crew chief, and Carl Edwards came down here, and they have hurt for speed all during testing, all during qualifying and practice for qualifying. And Carl wasn't totally happy with the way the car drove in a big pack, but he felt like the car was going to handle well, I think especially Krista in the configurations in now, just up there kind of in single file.
Well, Larry, we are on the same page. I spoke with Jack Roush, and he said that Carl has a car that has more downforce than others. They think they were going to be in good shape with that. In good shape indeed. They're currently running in the top 10. You know, that's a much better outing than Carl had at this race last year when he only completed 78 laps and finished last. He finished 39th in July, so this is a much better race for Carl. He said he's more comfortable with drafting. He feels like he's at about 75% at where he needs to be. But guys, I think the secret is his aerodynamics. He had a goatee yesterday. He's clean shaven today. He is aerodynamically sound.
Chris, I tell you, you got to shave before a race. Got to look good, man. There's no excuse for not looking good. I tell you a guy that's not happy, though, that's that dude in the 24 car. Well, they went into third turn there just a second ago, lap before. He had cars going all around him.
Jeff Gordon in the 24.
With those guys.
Dale Jr. low, Casey Kane in the 9. Here comes the 22 of Blaney.
Well, they're not done yet. Here comes a whole bunch.
Yeah, right now he's all the way back to the 32nd position. Darrell, I think you nailed it. He runs good when they have fresh tires on that car, and then he starts backing up in a hurry, starts losing grip.
That's how he won that qualifying race. Come in, got some tires, won the race, but you know, you can't do that in these long races.
Yesterday, Jeff Gordon really liked his car, but that was practice. Right now, he is 32nd. 90 laps to go in the Daytona 500 on Fox. The Busch brothers still out in front.
What I did on my vacation, I took my wife snowmobiling. No beaches here.
Katie and I went skiing in Telluride, Colorado.
Rode some snowmobiles on the ice, made a little racetrack on top of a little pond with some friends, and had a blast.
And also, Katie and I and Ross ended up going to the Super Bowl. So we got great tickets. We were sitting on the 50-yard line out in the rain for 4 hours, and had a great time.
No vacation here in Matt Kenseth. Ryan Newman running in the top 10, but Kurt Busch leading Kyle Busch. Some 86 laps to go in the Daytona 500. You're watching NASCAR on Fox. Nice to have you along with us. A quick Fox race break just to recap in case you tuned in a little bit late. Pole sitter David Gilliland led the first 18 laps. It was smooth sailing until the first caution came out in the 60 car. That's Boris Said. Slipping, sliding, but saving. Jeff Gordon, who started 42nd, one of those guys hitting the wall. That's Jimmy Johnson in front of him twice. Gordon hit the wall, had to work his way towards the front. Tony Stewart, who led 32 laps, trying to get out of the pits, but Gilliland creating some problems. Tony dropping back to 40th, hoping to make his way to the front of the pack. Chris Myers, Jeff Hammond, nice to have you along with us. As we look so far, what you've seen, some observations?
Well, from one thing has to be the 17 car, Matt Kenseth. Got a substitute crew chief right now, and he's doing a really good job, I think, between Chip Bowl and him, getting that car where it needs to be, presently running 8th.
Kenseth, one of those drivers without his crew chief from some of the punishments that were handed down. Let's check some of the other storylines as you look at Dale Earnhardt Jr., the drama of the DEI contract in the background.
Well, I think right now he's just trying to focus on his race car. He's been struggling with it as of late. You see right now, he tucked in behind Tony Stewart, and they're both of them trying to make their way back up through the field. Michael
Waltrip also and Toyota in their first Daytona 500.
He's struggling right now. He's a lap down, and they got a lot of work to do if they expect to be a factor before the end of the day.
Of the rookies from F1, a headline name internationally, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Car seems like it's still real tight. He's struggling with it. He's still back there in the mid-30s also, but at least so far he's kept it off the wall.
And how about this race with Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, couple of brothers who know each other well. Burton, Ward, and Jeff, the last brothers to finish 1-2 in a NASCAR race. That was 8 years ago.
Well, blood might be thicker than water, but you got to realize this is the Daytona 500, and I guarantee you right now when it comes down to that final lap, they're not going to care.
Well, let's rejoin Darrell, Larry, and Mike.
Change has come to second place, Denny Hamlin.
Good reason for
Kyle
it.
Busch.
Good reason for it, I tell you. If we can take a shot at that 5 car back there a few minutes ago, a few laps ago. I thought he was going to crash. He was really out of shape, Kyle Busch. Watch him come off turn 2 here. And this is what Daytona does to you. That's been a good car. It's been running down on the bottom of the track all day long. And the thing just took off. It didn't look like it on screen there, but he just took off, lost his momentum, and then had to fight for a position.
Yeah, he tried to put the block on Ryan Newman in the 12 car, but he's lucky he was able to keep it off that turn 2 wall.
Newman backslid to 6th. So right now Jeff Burton is 3rd. Kyle Busch continues to lose spots to the 1 of Martin Truex and the 12 of Newman.
I tell you what, Chris and Jeff, they were talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr., but how about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s teammate, Martin Truex Jr. in that 1 car? He looks like the deeper we get into this run, which we're not that far from pit stop, he's made his way into the top 5. There you see in the Bass Pro Shop car, up to the 4th position behind Jeff Burton.
But that's how quickly the car will change on you here. In 1 lap, you go from a car that's sticking pretty good and feeling okay to out of control.
And how about the car on the bottom right there, Jeff Green in the 66 car? He started way back in the 31st position. It's almost like Harold Holly, his crew chief, they have that car good for long run. And also remember, Hendrick Power under the hood of that car.
So 2 Busch Series former champions, Truex and Green, coming toward the front. Meanwhile, Matt Kenseth, David Stremme running high on the track with less than optimum handling.
This is when you find out who can hold one wide open or not.
Right with outside pole sitter Ricky Rudd. He's in 10th place right now. Nearing the end of a long green flag run. Pit stops coming up before too long. 119 laps complete in the Daytona 500 on Fox. What's big, bad, and victory red? Go to foxsports.com/Silverado for your chance to meet Dale Jr. and drive away in his all-new 2007 Chevy Silverado. Kurt Busch leads Denny Hamlin. Look at Tony Stewart right out that view. The Home Depot number 20 has climbed back up into the top 20. He's up to 15th place as Dale Jr. pulls alongside.
Yeah, he was stuck back there in the back for a long time because everybody had pretty good tires. As the tires go off and the handling package starts to kick in, that's where he shines.
And how he got back there on our last caution on lap 79. It restarted on lap 83. Roughly about 40 laps ago, he was penalized for speeding, leaving pit road, tailing the longest line, restarted back in 40th position on lap 83.
Tony closing up on Mark Martin, who's the new driver of the Army Chevrolet this year. He'll share that ride with Regan Smith. First time in a couple of decades that Martin has been here in anything other than a Jack Roush Ford.
And Larry, what I'm seeing is once the handle goes off like Kyle Busch is right now, you better get him to pit road or he's going to wreck the car. I mean, here he is. He was running up there with his brother running second. He's coming off of turn 2, and there he is in the fence again. And if you don't get him to pit road and get him some tires on there, he'll just drive it into the wall, and it won't be his fault.
And Darrell, we know those guys run the high line because it's where their car feels the best, but it doesn't give you much margin of error on the exit of turn 2 that has dealt so many cars a problem.
Well, the good thing about the high line, the transition out of the banking down onto the straightaway is much easier.
Pit stops have begun. Carl Edwards, the first of the lead lap cars, on pit road. Krista?
Yeah, the 99 was the first car to come in. They're just looking to loosen it up just a little bit. They're putting in the fuel, and Carl Edwards is going to come off the track. Expect the rest of the leaders to come down here in the next lap or so.
There's Joe Nemechek, who moves from the 01 to the 13, still for the same team. Last year MB2 Motorsports, and now it's Ginn Racing. Kyle Petty's back in the race, and so is Scott Riggs. So all 43 starters are on the racetrack. First of the leaders to pit will be Matt Kenseth and Kevin Harvick.
Matt Kenseth, he has that very first pit box coming in, and he's able to get his stop done and then just focus on leaving. Krista.
Yeah, Matt has been complaining that his car does not have any get up and go. He's really surprised that it's not handling better based on the kind of car they had, so they're just making some slight adjustments. Matt?
One concern the 29 team had was possible damage to that right front fender after contact with the 5. The team told them it looks good. Trying to free this 29 car up. That's Harvick's biggest complaint. It's just way too tight on exit.
Casey Kane completing his pit stop. His teammate Elliott Sadler also in.
Now you hear how he was revving the engine, Harvick in the 29 when he left pit road. That's the best thing you can do, because if they drop the jack and you kind of bog it down, you can break a transmission or a gear. That happened to him
in the dual race.
In the dual race.
Look at the entrance to pit road. It's feeding time at the zoo. There's a dozen cars scrambling to get in the pit lane. Here's Steve.
No adjustments to the 66, Mike. Jeff Green out of Owensboro, Kentucky, having a great run, was running in the 5th position, 4 tires and fuel. Matt.
Under the previous caution, the 48 team had Jimmy Johnson come twice to try to check the toe. Meanwhile, the 8 of Dale Earnhardt Jr. is in. They were trying to get this race car back a little more on the tight side. Jr. said he felt like he burned off that right rear tire. It was just so loose.
Pole sitter David Gilliland in, Yaley, Rudeman, Morris said, Tony Raines, Montoya, Mike Wallace, and here come Jeff Burton, Martin Truex, Ricky Rudd, along with Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, Greg Biffle, David Stremme, and Mark Martin to pit road. Kenny Schrader's in as well, along with Casey Mears and Bobby Labonte. Matt?
The guy that Jeff Burton liked running with under this past run was the one of Martin Truex. Burton says his car is good on the top down in 1 and 2, and the bottom down in 3 and 4. Slight air pressure adjustment. This 31 car seems to be really strong as the race progresses. You can see the wedge wrench in the back windows. They made that track bar adjustment.
4 tires and fuel for Stewart, for Stremme, for Mears and Labonte. These are green flag pit stops, and they come right around lap 126 and 7. Here's the leader, Kurt Busch, and Denny Hamlin, both on pit road together. Krista?
Yeah, let's start with Denny Hamlin. He said his car is just too tight on the exit of the turns. They're going to free it up a little bit. Meanwhile, our leader, Kurt Busch, some small adjustments. Left side air pressure and a wedge adjustment in the right rear. At first, they thought it was going to be a half round. Instead, 3/4 round. Just that much difference could be the difference in this race. Kurt Busch is down and away. Dick.
And here finally is Ryan Newman on pit road, and they are finally making a chassis adjustment in this car to try to make it handle a little bit better. It had picked up a bit of a push. Newman had started in the 16th position, worked his way all the way up to 4th before this round of pit stops.
Newman led a lap, Dick, and that will give him 5 bonus points in the Nextel Cup Championship. 1 penalty in this round of pit stops. Clint Boyer, a commitment line violation entering pit road. He'll have to do a pass-through penalty. That means he has to come down pit road at 55 miles an hour, the speed limit, go back out. And that's a tough thing to do when everybody else is going a $185.
And he actually hit the commitment cone and knocked it out of place. That's the reason that he's getting that penalty.
Maybe he thought he'd knock it out of the way and they wouldn't know where it was supposed to be. And he'd get away with the way thing. No.
128 laps complete in the Daytona 500 on Fox.